What's up, guys? Coach Joe, and as you can see, we're doing a podcast, something new that we're going to be starting. This is my friend, Coach Clay. We've worked together for many years now. We've coached teams together, and it's been a lot of fun. He's actually one of the best coaches, maybe ever. This guy gets clients driving out, flying out to see him. Really incredible. So, on this podcast, we're going to talk, about anything baseball related. Leave in the comments anything you want to know, and I'll let Clay introduce himself, and then we're going to start talking about the state of the game today.
What's up, guys? Coach Clay here, local guy here in South Bay right now. Coach all over the state. I've had guys fly out from Alaska, Colorado, Las Vegas. So I've worked with quite a few people from quite a few different areas. Utility coach, specializing in infield, but I was lucky enough to grow up as a utility ball player, and so I'm trying to spread the knowledge about being a utility player and trying to find any way to get yourself in that lineup.
All right, awesome. So one of the things we were looking at a topic, we want to talk about the state of the game. And so in my view, baseball right now is exploding. I've read a lot of stats where people are talking about it's blowing up, as big as it was during its heyday. They talk about the golden era of baseball, and youth baseball in particular is blowing up, and we're both in youth baseball, and so that's something we see. But we want to talk about the injury epidemic and ways to play the game without, kind of falling prey to that. So for me, you guys know I preach the knuckleball because it's a way to have fun as a pitcher, develop something nasty, still be able to pitch a lot, but without injuring your arm. Clay works with guys, works with pitchers, works with everybody, but specifically infielders, guys like that. And so I want to hear some of his thoughts on the injury epidemic and what he's seen just with the state of the game today.
Yeah, so I think building an athlete is a lot like building a car. You've got your chassis, right? You've got your frame, and then you've got your engine, and then you've got your brakes and your suspension, and all of that. A lot of this is analogous to a baseball player. So you've got your frame, that's your body, right? And then your engine is sort of what you're doing with your muscles. Right? So what's happening these days is a lot of guys are pushing their engine to the absolute max, and the chassis, the frame, can't handle it. So if you put an F1 motor in a Volkswagen Beetle, you will tear that thing in half, and that's what's starting to happen these days. Guys are not worried about the brakes as much. Another analogy on that one is if you go really, really fast, you need to be able to stop really well as well, or else you're going to crash and burn. A lot of guys are really good at getting their arm going forward, but their deceleration patterns are not strong enough to prevent injury. So, when you build a car, you can't just work on the engine. You've got to have the proper frame for that. You've got to have the suspension and the brakes. So the suspension to me would be like mobility, flexibility, being able to actually kind of move in safe patterns. So again, it's the whole package that we need to look at, and then just not putting a big enough engine in the frame until that frame is ready for it. So I would say that you got to get a good driver behind the wheel and let him drive go-karts first, and then once he's ready for that bigger motor, bigger engine, as that frame builds, then we can start to try to see where those limits can be. But I think that it's a mistake to just build the engine without looking at the frame and the brakes and the suspension.
Really good stuff right there. 100, totally agree. Clay, what would you say to a parent of a kid who's looking at the PG leaderboards for velocity and he's worried that his kid is not stacking up? There's guys up there throwing like 90 at 14, right? At like really young ages. So what would you say to a parent who's worried about that?
Don't. Don't worry about that. That would be the first thing that I would say. I would say that that comes down the line. You look at a guy like Paul Skeens, big engine nowadays, right? Big frame too, great brakes, great suspension, all that. He's the total package. But in high school, he was not worried about that. In high school, he threw, I think, in the 80s or something like that. And then he trusted that everything else would come through. I've played with numerous ball players who, entered high school at maybe 5'2", but the fundamentals were there. All of a sudden, they hit their growth spurt. Now they're 6 foot, and now they're throwing 90. But they never actually pushed for 90 at that, smaller frame. Once they were ready for it, then it came naturally. It came easily. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. And those guys ended up being healthier in the long run.
That's exactly the way I was thinking about it too, and we're definitely in agreement on that. I've seen so many guys like Paul Skeens as an example, Ben Joyce as an example. He says he only threw 65 his freshman year, and I've got guys that are stressed out. Parents are stressed. Their kids only throwing 65 when they're 12. They're like, oh my gosh, there's some 12-year-old throwing 80 out there, and it's like, hold on, okay, like 65 at 12 is incredible speed. Don't even try to push beyond that. Just work on developing the body like we're talking about so we can even withstand 65, and we can build our bodies so that we're not burning out our tendons, our ligaments, stuff like that. And then something I actually don't know as much about, what about as far as like position players? I know they're throwing too, but like, is there as much risk for that, for overuse? Hitters, outfielders, infielders, stuff like that.
So overuse is going to be an issue for any ball player, regardless of what position you're at, right? The outfielders playing too much long toss, you can run into issues. Catchers, being down on their knees all the time, that's why you've got several different catchers. You need to work in your rest and recovery. That's extremely important. With that being said, I would encourage position players to work on their skills as a pitcher. Quite a few guys have started out as position players and then found out they just had a lively arm that works well because they never actually tried to push that portion. But the guys that have a little bit of finesse, okay, can get up on the mound and collect outs. So what I would say is I think there's a big difference between a thrower and a pitcher. Throwers are up there just trying to kind of beat you with stuff, right? They're trying to throw hard, spin that thing as fast as they can, and just beat you that way, right? But an actual pitcher will use some finesse. They'll use some location. They'll use some tunneling. They'll use some sequencing that makes pitches look like they're actually faster than they are, or makes pitches look like they're moving more than they are. So to become a pitcher is totally different than I think a lot of people are training nowadays to just be a thrower. Now, if you're a good infielder with some finesse, you can probably figure that out on the mound as well. But be a pitcher, not a thrower.
100%. Really good stuff. We're going to be doing a lot more of these. This was just kind of a quick intro for you guys. And so hope you learned, some stuff from this. Put down in the comments stuff you'd want us to cover in future podcasts like this. We want to help educate as many of you guys out there. And this is just a lot of fun for us. We like talking baseball. And so we'll see you guys in the next one.